Hey guys, welcome back to another video. Today's video we're going to be doing a romance reading vlog for Valentine's Day. As you can tell, I'm in my Miss Rachel Valentine's attire. I put this on and was like, oh, this is so cute. And then I was like, wait, I 100% look like Miss Rachel, but it's fine. We love Miss Rachel here, so it's totally fine. For this vlog, we're actually going to be reading 3 romance-ish books, hopefully. So let's jump in and get started. The 3 books that we're going to be reading are Done and Dusted. This is going to be the first book that we start with. I've already started reading it just a little bit, so I'm very excited to get into this. The other 2 books that we'll be reading for this vlog are Wuthering and Wild Love. Obviously, we've got a theme with Done and Dusted and Wild Love, both being cowboy romances, and then Wuthering Heights because some of y'all really think this is a romance book, and I'm here to prove today that this is not a romance, okay? By romance, they did not mean cutesy-dootsy, lovey-dovey nonsense. This is a tragedy. Think it akin to Romeo and Juliet in the sense of like a love story, but everyone's just dying and killing each other and hates each other. That's what this is, okay? So, regardless, these are going to be the 3 books that we're reading for this vlog, so I hope you guys enjoy, and if you do, don't forget to like and subscribe, and then leave me a comment. What did y'all do for Valentine's Day? What are y'all going to be doing? I think this is going to be out after Valentine's Day, so what did you do? If you did or were going to read anything for a Valentine romance vlog, what would you be reading? And let's get going. So, it's time for our first romance book update for Done and Dusted. I am officially halfway through. Obviously, we're told that this is a best friend of the family little sister romance, and I'm liking it so far. There are some things language-wise and I'm like, ugh, and I don't like. Specifically when it comes to the Luke Brooks character. There's a spicy scene, they're getting it on, and in the spicy scene, he says something about claiming her and dominating her. And I don't know, guys, for whatever reason, it fully took me out of the scene for a moment, and I was like, ugh, yuck, I don't like it. So that happened. Other than those 2 instances, which happened like in like the same 2 pages. Other than that, though, I've enjoyed the book. I do think that this is less horse girl, and it's very much just like we needed a story in the background to like push these 2 people together. And that's one critique I have of this, is that it is fully just about 2 people trying to come together and whatever that looks like for them. And it's very much less about the plot of like what's going on with Clementine and like what she's dealing with and how that's affecting her. Like, we get some like nuance of that, but it's like, it's very weird in the way that we're trying to use Brooks to just help her get through her like crippling death moment of like an accident. And like, she's just like, if I just think about him, then it'll be okay. And I'm like, huh? As someone who has mental health problems and mental illness, reading a book where a character has like basically PTSD from almost dying in an incident, and her being like, just his touch makes me forget everything. Girl, what? I don't know. Maybe that's me projecting because I've never lived that experience, and so maybe anybody let me know. If you've ever had PTSD, has a boy holding your waist ever made you forget that you had PTSD and made you get back on a horse? I'm just saying that sounds really silly. But beyond that, like I said, the romance parts are cute. Like, it's fine. It's very middle of the road to me. I can see why a lot of people liked it. It's very fast paced and it gets to the point essentially. I will say we're halfway through and I'm at 58% in, and we've only had like 2 somewhat spicy scenes with the characters. Like I'm coming up on like, I think the most spicy scene that's gonna happen, but like so far we've kissed, right? That's what we've gotten in this book. They've kissed a few times. They're very infatuated. They're very honeymoon phase, right? I'm trying to understand, why is it just now that I'm seeing you and I'm liking you kind of thing. All that being said, I really am enjoying this book. I'm interested to see how the romance plays out in the end, but this is more pure romance than I was expecting. I was expecting some kind of story because they make it seem like there's more of a story going on based on the back synopsis. The story's supposed to be Clementine gets into a accident on a horse and almost has like a near-death experience, and it freaks her out because her mom died on a horse or something to that effect. We don't know the full story of what happened to her mom exactly. We just know that she died in a horse accident of some sort. So I'm thinking that what's happening is she's relating her incident to what happened to her mom, and like Brooks mentions that at some point in the book, but it doesn't seem like our character Clementine is like fully aware of the connection in her like conscious mind. At least that's kind of Brooks's thinking, is that she maybe hasn't made a connection to what happened to her mom being what's happening to her now. So all that to say, I'm very interested to see what ends up happening with the relationship with Brooks. If it falls apart for whatever reason, we are told like from the jump that Brooks is basically a player and that he's very fast and loose and he slept with everybody in the whole town. But we're learning from Brooks that maybe that's not true. But because we have this perceived notion, at least Clementine does, of who Brooks was, she doesn't believe him when he says certain things, and she's not believing him when he tells her that he's not he isn't this kind of playboy person that they think that he is. So I don't know. I'm very interested to see what the story is going to be about, like how it's going to wrap up, if there's going to be an additional love interest happening adjacent. I know that there's more books in the series, and I don't know if the other characters in the series relate to this book or if they're just other characters in another world. I do have the second book in the series, even though you can read them out of order. So obviously I'll be reading the second book because I already own it. And like I said, this is a very fast-paced book. Its audio was like 8 hours, so it goes pretty quickly. I did not want to stop last night, but I had to because I had to work today, just because it was good. We were getting to a good spot. We were about to be in a spicy scene. And so I was like really enjoying it. I'm probably going to try and finish this today. And yeah, I think that's it for my update on Done and Dusted. I have decided that after I finish Done and Dusted, we are going to be reading Wuthering Heights. So I'm excited for that so that I can kind of listen and read. I only got 5 days to read through all of these books because I have to edit the vlog on Valentine's Day. And then we have Wild Love that might, I don't know if we're going to make it. We'll see. That one's a chunker, so we'll see. Anyway, thank you for coming along with my update. I'll see y'all soon. Last night I finished reading Done and Dusted. I have a lot of feelings about that book. I really enjoyed just the fun of it and just the whimsy of it, I guess, in the sense of it being like an easy romance kind of book. I will say though that like I really am learning in this vlog as far as romance is concerned. I just don't like quick, fast romances, and I don't like where romance is the main point of the book. I don't understand, like I do and I don't. I understand because I get it as far as like writing is concerned, but I don't get it as far as like execution. And that is when you have a plot that you're like trying to make a thing in the book. Sorry, my camera fell. But I understand it in the execution, or I don't understand how they, like the execution of the idea that there's supposed to be this big plot that's happening in the background of this romance, but the plot is just like, is secondary. I would honestly argue potentially that the plot is even, sun is sunning today, tertiary. Because there's the like plot of the whole book is that she had this bad accident and her like overcoming that. But like we barely spent time dealing with that. And the way that it's dealt with is just kind of like, what? Like, the idea that this man touching her waist helped bust her out of her PTSD, that wrapping herself up in this man is what made her better, just, it's not sitting well with me. I'm so sorry, but it's just not sitting with me well. I'm not believing it, I'm not buying it, and like, I feel like to a point I need to buy the plot that you're trying to sell me, and I'm just not. So I think that's one of my biggest gripes about what happened in the book from a plot standpoint. But like I said, the romance was cute, it was sweet, I really enjoyed it. I will say the ending, I was kind of like, girl, what? Because there is, again, another like secondary plot that is about, so the guy that she's interested in and her brother are best friends. And so there's that plot of like how that gets dealt with, and the way that they do that at the end, and the way that they like disengage from each other for however long it is to like let her brother like cool off about the situation is just kind of like, it was dumb. Like, I'm so sorry, but y'all both need to stand up. Y'all are grown-ups, and this is silly. This is so silly that y'all are like not seeing each other because your brother threw a hissy baby fit. I don't know. It was silly. So that's kind of how I felt about the book generally overall. I believe I ended up giving it a 3-star because it was just kind of mid for me. It was just very mid. There were obviously a lot of things that I would have liked to have seen done better. So that's where I'm gonna leave that. And then today we are starting Wuthering Heights. I have the audiobook for it and I have a physical copy of the book, so I'm gonna tandem read that one. Very excited for it. And then we're gonna see if we're actually gonna have time in this vlog to even read Wild Love. I don't know if we're gonna have time, because that book's a little bit of a thicker book in the sense of like how long it should take me to read. And it's already Wednesday and this video needs to go up on Sunday. And I know Wuthering Heights is gonna take me at least 2 days potentially to finish. I'm currently on my way to take my daughter to the doctor. So that's throwing kind of some wrenches into the plans of reading and things like that. And that's just life. Life happens. Life's sometimes. So we'll get into it and get back to it when I can, but that's the next book on the docket, is to read Wuthering Heights. So I'll see y'all with an update once I get started. Hello and welcome back. All right, so we've started Wuthering Heights. It's going well. I'm 7% of the way in, not very far. Yesterday, little girl got sick, so we had to go to the doctor, and it kind of threw off all of my reading plans for yesterday, but that's okay. I started reading after she went to bed last night, and I'm liking it so far. I'm following it pretty well, which I was worried about because I'm not a classic lit girly, so, you know, I wasn't sure how that was going to go. But regardless, today it is Thursday the 12th, so I've got today and tomorrow to try and finish this book, basically. I think we're, like I said, only going to have 2 books in this vlog after all. So, sorry about that, but maybe I'll make another romance vlog in the future. Either way, today, what we're doing, I have to work. I want to try and listen to the audiobook while I'm working, but I don't know if I'm going to be able to do that with it being more of a classic lit and being able to like pay attention to what they're talking about. I don't know if I can do that. So we'll see how it goes. Irregardless, right now, I'm about to make my famous chai tea from home. I used to be very obsessed with the Starbucks chai teas. I loved them, especially the pumpkin spice one. However, we don't support Starbucks, okay? Gross, yucky for a lot of reasons. So I started making things from home and doing them myself. I have my own little like syrup station and all kinds of teas and things like that. Like I've just decided that I'm not doing the Starbucks thing anymore. So, and that's been going on for a while, but irregardless, we're gonna make my chai tea. I don't know if I wanna do a pumpkin spice or a salted caramel, but those are the 2 that I go with. So I'm feeling salted caramel, so I think we're gonna do that. So let's get started. I'm gonna show you how I make mine. First things first, we grab a cup. I like this cup. These are like the size that I typically go with because I put a lot of ice in the cup. So let's go fill it up with ice. All right, so I filled it with ice. We got regular ice because I don't do none of the fancy ice stuff. I just got regular ice from our refrigerator, okay? So we got ice. Two of the most key things that you have to have are, one, the Tazo Classic Chai Latte Blend Mix, concentrate, whatever you want to call it. And then Planet oat milk. I don't like regular milk, so this is why I drink oat milk. But I get the barista blend. It's very creamy and thick. It's perfect for the chai tea. It kind of reminds me of the Starbucks one, though I haven't had it in like 2 years, so I couldn't really tell you. But that's how I feel about it. So I start with adding the oat milk. All right, so then we've got our cup of ice, and then I add my oat milk. And that's about how much I put in there. And then I top that with the Tazo Classic Chai Latte Blend. This is a concentrate, so you don't need that much. About there. And then at this point, I like to stir it. Especially because the ice gets all stuck together. I stir it up. Okay, that's perfect. Not too oaty, not too chai. I like it a nice combo. So we got a perfect amount of chai in there. Now for the salted caramel parts. I add some Monin salted caramel syrup. I do about 8 pumps of that. And I only do 8 because one Monin is very strong, but also because I add this salted caramel cold foam to the top. I believe this is from my H-E-B. It's just an off-brand. And then I put some of that on top. All right, and then the final piece de resistance is I add caramel sauce from Torani. I used to do the Torani syrups and I don't like them. They're gross, period. So, add our syrup. And then that is my homemade salted caramel chai tea latte. It is absolutely delicious. It's one of my favorite things to make. I make these probably like every 2 or 3 days as a little sweet treat, especially when it's not hot, when it's hot outside, because when it's cold outside, I make hot tea. So now we're gonna go get to work. We've got our chai tea latte. I have also a pink edition of the Red Bull. I really like Red Bulls. That's what I drink. I know they're bad for you. I don't need to hear about it. We're also gonna have a breakfast sandwich for breakfast, as we do almost every day. And we got water already in the office. So let's get to work, and I'll talk to y'all soon. So today is Friday. It's Friday the 13th. Happy Friday the 13th, all my spooky friends. We are still reading Wuthering Heights. I am not very far. I haven't made it very far. I'm on chapter 5 currently, but I'm making progress, you know? That's all that matters. As long as I finish it by tomorrow, we're good. So I'm going to keep chugging along at it today. But I just got through chapter 4, where basically the maid at the house that Mr. Lockwood is renting a house from Heathcliff, and she's basically telling him the story of Kathy, Heathcliff, and Henley. And I have to say, obviously, I've never read this before. It's my first time reading this book. But right now, based on what I'm reading, all the information that I'm getting about Heathcliff and all the things that he's going through in this book so far, and like we just got his introduction through the maid's perspective of like how he came to be with the family and like how they found him and all of that. Getting all of that information and that introduction, I'm kind of like, I feel bad for him right now. Like, yeah, he's like causing the other son, Henley, to like retaliate against him because he's like, oh, well, if you do this, I'm gonna tell on you, basically. But like at the same time, like everyone was treating this little kid so poorly. Like he's a baby, he's a child, and everyone's like beating up on him and abusing him. And like, I will say that it's weird that the dad just like randomly finds this kid on the street in Liverpool and is like, hey, I'm gonna take that kid home with me because no one knows who it belongs to, so I'm just gonna take him home with me. I don't know what they were doing back in the day, but that's a wild thing to do. To just be like, oh, there was a little kid starving on the ground, so I picked him up and was like, hey, do y'all know whose kid this is? And everyone was like, nah, we don't know. And so I just brought him home with me. Crazy. Just a crazy situation to be doing something like that. But regardless, we're learning that like basically everybody in the family other than the dad abused Heathcliff as a child. And so he basically learned how to use that against everyone in the sense that like if they did something to him, he would be like, oh, I'm going to tell your dad that you're doing that to me. Like, you better stop. Like, he would use it against them, especially when he wanted something. He'd be like, oh, well, there's an example of like him wanting a horse. And so he told Henley, like, give me your horse. And Henley was like, no, because Heathcliff had a horse, but his horse was lame. So he didn't want the horse. And so he was like, give me your horse. And Henley was like, no, I'm not giving you my horse. And Heathcliff was like, give me your horse or I'm going to go tell your dad that you're being a butthole to me. And Henley was like, I don't care, go tell him. And he was like, all right, I'm going to go tell him that you've done all these things to me and he's going to kick you out of the house and you're not going to have nowhere to live. And Henley was like, go ahead and tell him then, you little tattletale. And he's like, goes to throw a rock at him. He's like, throw that rock at me and I'm going to go tell him and you're not going to have anywhere to live. And he throws the rock at him and thankfully like the maid is there. And so she's like, hey, like, don't do that, basically dissuades him from doing it. And Henley's like, whatever, take my horse, you loser. I don't like you anyway. They keep using I don't know if you would consider it a slur. In the context that they're saying it, it sounds very slur-like. And I don't know if that's just because he was poor and neglected, or if that's the ethnicity that they're giving him. He has been described as being a dark-skinned, dark-haired person. And so I don't know that it's a black person, but maybe it's just like a darker toned, I don't know. I don't know what you would actually consider his race or ethnicity to be based on the way that they're describing him in the book. But all that to say, it just sounds like a bunch of asshole people, excuse my language, being rude to this poor little kid and him being like, all right, bet, y'all want to be assholes, I got you. Now, granted, again, I'm only on chapter 5, so I could change my tone real quick, and we're gonna see, because I do believe that we're learning about Heathcliff now, but I'm kind of like, I need to go back, hold on. So Heathcliff, he's calling him Mr. Heathcliff, which I think is very interesting. But regardless, he now owns Wuthering Heights. And Mr. Lockwood is basically just learning about this family. So, I don't know. I'm curious to see what's going to end up happening. And, like, do I hate Heathcliff? Because from what I hear, everyone hates him and he's a terrible person. And, like, the things you go through in life can be terrible and the people who do them to you can be awful. But that does not mean that you become an awful, terrible person. So, like, I don't know. It'll be interesting to see how I feel about. But, like, presently, I'm like, oh, man, this poor kid. Like, I do feel bad for him as a child right now. Because people were just being assholes to him because he was poor and a different color than them. So, I don't know. Maybe I'm misunderstanding some things. But that's what I got so far. So, I'm going to keep reading. I'll come back with the update later. I hope y'all are having a great Friday the 13th. And I'll talk to you soon. Okay, so I wanted to record for a few things. One, for an update on Wuthering Heights. First of all, Okay, there's so many updates. Pause. I have 3 key things I want to talk about. 1, today is Sunday, February 15th. I did not get the vlog finished in time. As you would have seen if you watched today's video that went up, I went to the bookstore for Valentine's Day and I got some books, and I ended up doing a lot more on Valentine's Day than I anticipated actually doing. I thought I would just stay home and read the whole day, and that's not what ended up happening. So I haven't finished Wuthering Heights, but I've been reading a lot today. I am on page 131. I'm hoping to finish this tomorrow. I'm gonna keep reading tonight as well, but I'm really enjoying it. So I guess my update on Wuthering Heights, currently I'm on chapter 11 in Wuthering Heights, and I'm really enjoying it. I'm loving it more than I thought that I would and thought that I was going to. Also, I'm sorry if the audio is bad. My husband's taking a shower in there, so hopefully you can hear me okay. But regardless, I'm liking this a lot more than I anticipated. When I first started reading it, I was kind of bored, to be honest, and I was kind of just like bleh about the whole thing. He's always next to me. If my daughter's not around, he's right here. Anyway, the first chapter or 2 was kind of boring, and I was kind of like, oh, what am I about to read? But then as soon as we jump into the maid explaining history and lore and background from her perspective, that's when I was like, oh girl, I'm locked in. I need the chisme. I want to hear the gossip. So I'm enjoying that part of the story. It's really, really good. I will say my thoughts on Catherine and Heathcliff at this point that I'm at are Heathcliff. I'm at a turning point. So before this turning point just started, I was like, Heathcliff seems pretty regular to me. I'm not seeing why everyone was saying he's such an awful and terrible person. Everybody talks about how just awful he is, and so I wasn't seeing it until this turning point that I'm at, where it appears that he has just assaulted a woman because he kisses her, and it does not appear that it was something that she was interested in doing or wanting. So I'm already jumping the bandwagon that I was trying to be on, because I was like, I'm not seeing it. Like, it seems like a lot of people are just really trying to like shit on this man and make his life a living hell for whatever reason, whether that be because of his social class or his identity and race, the appearance that he has as a person. It just seems like people are like dogpiling on him, essentially. That's what it feels like. And so I'm at that point, before this terrible moment just happened, I was like, I'm just not seeing it. Like, I'm just not seeing what everyone else is seeing, I don't think. And Catherine, I was like, y'all, she is the most entitled, wishy-washy, terrible person. Like, she is terrible. She is a terrible person. From the aspect that she's trying to be more than one person. She's trying to have like this duality of a personality and be able to hang out with her poor colored friend and also be able to hang out with her rich white friends, and basically just being whatever person fits the situation that she's in to appease the people around her. And it's disgusting. It's truly disgusting. The maid has clocked her from day one, and the maid was like, she's a terrible person. She's just a terrible person. She has a black heart, and she just doesn't care about anyone but herself. And if it doesn't make Catherine feel good and make Catherine feel better, then it can't be good for anyone, and she's just going to throw a fit. And there's like this scene where Catherine is talking to the maid, and this is again from the maid's perspective. So like I don't know if we ever get a different perspective at any point in the book. I'll obviously update if we do, but this is from the maid's perspective, so there is that ability to think about like bias and your own perception and not the way that the person who was living in that moment would have perceived. We don't have their inner thoughts, right? We only have the maid's inner thoughts. And so, in her lived experience, right? So we're having to grapple with that, but like there's a scene where the maid and Catherine are in the kitchen together, and then Heathcliff comes in and he's like, spend the day with me, and she's like, nah dog, I don't know about that. And he was like, spend the day with me. Like, I'm going to hang out with you. And she was like, well, my brother. And he was like, your brother ain't here. He's gone. Well, the manservant of the house, well, he ain't going to be back until later. So we can hang out. Why are you getting all dressed up anyway? No one's coming over here. It's raining outside. Like, well, you never know. Like, she's like, you never know who might stop by. And he's like, well, I'm hanging out with you today. So no one should be coming by. And she was like, well, actually, the neighbors are going to come over. They said that they might come by, so they might actually come by, but I don't think they will because it's raining. And then like 7 seconds later they come and she's like, you have to go. And so he's like, whatever. And he leaves. And he basically like shows her this moment of like, I'm here for you and I'm into you. And he's like made this like calendar of keeping track of like how many times they've spent together and how much time she spent with the neighbors. And he's like, come on. She's like, why would you keep count of that? It's so weird and petulant. And he's like, yeah, but like, can't you see, like, it's because I want to spend time with you. I'm trying to, like, I don't really know what his intention with that was, because it is kind of a little bit weird and like, why are we keeping track and why are we keeping score, but whatever. But then he leaves, and then this man comes in, and when he comes in, the maid is like, I have to stay there because her brother's not there. And so like, obviously back in the 1840s when this book is written, it's improper for a woman to be left alone in any room with a man who is not her own family. And so the maid's like, I have to stay here because her brother's not home and he would not want her to be alone. And so she's like, okay, get out. Like, Catherine's like, get out, maid lady. And she's like, nah, I'm not leaving. Her name's Nellie, by the way. The maid's name is Nellie. And she's like, no, I got some stuff to do. I'm good. I'll sit over here. And Catherine's like, nah, you gotta go. Like, you gotta get out of my house. And get out of this room. You can't sit in here with us. And Nellie's like, well, I just have like some stuff that I need to finish up, whatever. And Catherine's like, it's okay. I'm telling you to leave. I want you to leave. Like, leave. And Nellie's like, no, I'm not leaving. And she pinches the shit out of her and is like, get out. I told you to leave, so leave. And like, she's being very ugly. And this man has come over, who is her neighbor. And it appears that he is courting her. And he's like, watching this happen, and she's like, why? Then Nellie's like, why did you just do that to me, you wretched little child? Like, why would you do that? That hurt. Don't do that to me. And she's like, I didn't do anything to you. And she's like, yes, you did. What do you call this bruise on my arm? And she like slaps the lady. And Nellie's like, what is happening here? This man is watching all of this, mind you. And so like this whole like fight breaks out. She ends up beating on some little kid. And then the man gets in the way and she ends up hitting him. And he's like, whoa, I'm out. I'm leaving. And she's like, what do you mean? Like, he's like, I'm not going to stay here after you just hit me. And she was like, you have to. You don't have a choice. And he leaves. But then she comes back that night to talk to the maid, Nellie, and be like, he asked me to marry him and I'm going to marry him. He what? And even the maid is like, girl, what? He wants to marry you after what you did this afternoon? That's wild. So, all that to say, Catherine's a little shit, and I don't like her at all. But Heathcliff is turning into the same little shit, and it seems like they feed off of each other's negativity. Like, they're those types of people that, like, they're both toxic, and so putting them together makes them, like, 10 times more toxic, and they're just trying to out-toxic each other. So I'm not really sure where we're going, but that is my update on Wuthering Heights. The third thing I was going to tell you about. I was watching Books and Lala's video that just came out today. She was doing the Reading My Color vlog. So she is a purple reader based off this like survey assessment thing from Read Your Color. So I'll link it in the description so that if y'all want to take the test, you can too. But I took the test myself because I was like, well, what is my color? I want to know what my color is. And it turns out my color is red. I did get 55% equally of red. I think it was red, blue, and purple is what I got. But it says I'm a red reader. And I was like, cool, whatever. Let's see what that means. Basically, it's saying that I'm a passionate adventurer. A red reader is someone who doesn't just like to read stories, but live them. You crave intensity, high stakes, and stories that grip you from the first page to the last, which is all very true. It also says you immerse yourself in danger, passion, and triumph. You like your pulse to race and your heart to pound. You like fast-paced reading, which is all true things. And then it listed off my fiction preferences, and 2 suggestions it has there is The Silent Patient, which I have already read, also because I was a psych student, so I was like very interested in reading that book. So I read it and I did like it. I don't think it was a 5-star by any means, but I did like it. And the twist was twisty. And then Project Hail Mary, which I recently read at the end of last year, and I loved that book. I thought it was so good. So yeah, 2 wins there. It says, my preferences are thrillers that keep you on the edge of your seat, action-packed adventures where heroes are tested to their limit, emotionally charged stories of resilience and survival, bold, dramatic romances that break your heart and build it back up. Which is also true because I really loved Addie LaRue, and Addie LaRue did that. The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue. And then my nonfiction preferences, gripping adventure memoirs that showcase real-life courage, personal narratives of triumph over adversity, stories of I'm so sorry, I can't read. Stories of perseverance, bravery, and unwavering determination, explorations of intense human experience and hard-won victories, which are true. I do love those types of books. And then for that, it recommended The Devil in the White City, which I've never heard of, Murder, Magic, and Madness at the Fair That Changed America. Never heard of it. And then Unbroken, which is a movie I've watched, but I've never read the book, about a World War II story of survival, resilience, and redemption. And I did like the movie. I thought it was relatively good. And then it gives me a list of books I would probably like. One of them is Killers of the Flower Moon, which is about the Osage murders and the birth of the FBI. I did start watching that movie or show, I don't even remember what it is, with my husband, but we both were bored as heck out of that movie, so... Also, it was Leonardo DiCaprio, and I'm not a huge fan of that man. So, there's that. Another one, Dark Matter by Blake Crouch. I actually tried to read that, and I DNF'd it like 4 chapters in because I was bored. Straight bored. So, maybe it ends up being good, but I wasn't into it. Tell No One by Harlan Coben, which I've never heard of. The Wager, A Tale of Shipwreck, Mutiny, and Murder by David Grann, which sounds like something I would probably like. Hidden Pictures, which I have read. Actually, no, I've never read Hidden Pictures by Jason Rugalik because I've heard weird things about it. So maybe I should read it. The Woman in Cabin 10, I owned and never read because I started it and it was boring. It started out really interesting and then it got real boring real quick. So I never finished it. But that's a Ruth Ware book who I've also read from In a Dark, Dark Wood. I really liked by her. So... some recommendations of books. Maybe I'll read My Color, and I'll do a Read My Color vlog too. If you haven't taken the test, you can take it. Again, it's linked in the description if you want to try it. Let me know what color you get. If you've already taken the test, what is your color? What kind of books do you like and enjoy the most? I like this idea because I feel like I do struggle sometimes with like, what do I like and what do I enjoy? So I thought that was fun to take a little quiz to find out what it thinks I like based on these like 24 prompt questions that it gave. I think it's funny that it says I'm a red reader, but I had like literally the same level for 2 other colors. So that's my update for today. Like I said, I'm going to go finish reading Wuthering Heights. Not finish it, but read some more of it. And then we'll see what the day brings. Hubby and I are going to watch the Seven Kingdoms Game of Thrones show. But I like the show. It is only like 30-minute episodes though, which is kind of lame. So there's that. But it's a very good show, and I'm very much enjoying it. If you watch it, let me know in the comments who's your favorite character. This is more of a rambly bit in the video, but, you gotta keep things interesting. I will see y'all with an update if I have any updates on my thoughts about the characters, Heathcliff and Catherine. And if not, I'll have my final review of the book. And that'll be the end of the vlog. So, I'll see y'all soon. Hello, I'm back with an update on Wuthering Heights. So, I am 60-something% of the way through with this book. I'm nearly done. Updates. What are my updates? So, I've made it to part 2. So, Act 2, part 2, whatever you want to call it. This is separated into parts. So, I've made it to part 2 in the story. So, I know, like, from seeing other people's responses and reactions to the movie that has come out, a lot of people are saying that they only cover part 1 of the book, which is apparently very consistent with all of the other movies that have always come out, that everybody just stops after part 1 is over. So I'm in part 2 now, which means that I am beyond the main things that most people know about this, just watching movies. That also means that things have gotten crazy. Catherining that happened since my last update, like she was just a spiteful person. There's a spoiler there that I'm not going to get into. And then Heathcliff, boy, I thought that he would be redeemable. I thought that I would look at this book and be like, wow, there's just a lot of people who are reading this and just being like, oh, he's a terrible person and he deserves all the terrible things and he's just a heinous person, and not keeping in mind the context of where he came from to becoming this person. And I will say that I understand why people have been against Heathcliff. he is a terrible person, especially now seeing what I'm seeing in the book as far as his like distaste for certain individuals. Okay, sorry, that angle wasn't angling for me, and this angle is angling better for me, so I was looking down. I don't like that. Anyway, continuing. His distaste for other people goes beyond bounds. Like, the hatred that he has for so many people, and some of it, granted, is warranted. The way that they treated him as a child makes sense. That he would be so awful and ugly to some of these people, in my personal opinion. You can't be, like, belittled and treated so terribly for so long in your life to then just be like, oh, well, bygones are bygones at this point. Like, it boiled over, especially because a lot of it was racism. It was just a lot of racism towards him and not liking him because he should have been lesser than them. But all that being said, going into his story and the second half of this, I'm like, brother, you didn't have to do that. Like, you don't have to do what you're doing. You're doing this to be so beyond spiteful, and you're just being a terrible human being at this point. Like, it's just so beyond. And like, I don't want to get into it too deeply because I don't want to like super spoil this book for anyone who wants to read it. I do recommend, if you have not read Wuthering Heights, that you should read it. I will say it is a dense read in the sense that, like, look at the page. There is like barely a margin. There is no gaps. There is no dialogue gapping. There's no blank pages. This is just a full-on book. So it's taking me a while. I think the audiobook's like 10 hours or something like that. I don't know why I expected this was going to be a shorter read. I still have like 4-ish something hours left. I'm hoping to finish this tonight so that I can get this video up and loaded for Wednesday, but we'll see. Regardless though, I do recommend reading this if you've never read it. It is really good. I don't think it's too hard to follow. I will say the only parts that I have a really hard time, even listening with the audiobook, is Joseph. There's a manservant named Joseph in this book who speaks in what they're calling a Yorkshire accent. I don't know if that's accurate or not because I wasn't in this time in 1840s, but whatever. But I cannot understand a frackin' word that he's saying, and the way that they like write the words he's saying. Like, I have to find a spot so that you can see how Joseph talks and the way it's written in this book. Like, I don't even know, like, if you were reading this, it's not even like that long, but this is Joseph talking, and here, and it's just like, Norny me all yo how na hend it wit. I don't know what none of that means. I don't know what he's saying, and the problem that I'm having with not understanding what he's saying is that even in the audiobook, when they're reading it, I can decipher certain parts when the audio narrator's reading it, but even then I'm like, what is he actually trying to say? And to be honest, I'm kind of just glossing over most of what Joseph is saying because I'm just finding that what he's saying is usually just him being rude or judgmental of other people. So it's not, to me, all that important, what he's saying. But it is just very, like, it is a weird part of this book that, like, why did we write it like that? I know that they were trying to articulate that there was an accent within their writing, Emily, and maybe like back in 1840s, people understood what the heck she wrote. I, in the 2026s, don't know what that means. So there's that. But yeah, Heathcliff's character is very interesting, and the way that he's turned about Mr. Linton, who I talked about earlier in the like story about Nellie and Catherine and Mr. Linton, his story has progressed. And I'm like not understanding, like I understand the way that he's treating someone in this book, but I don't understand it in the sense that the person is being basically like sheltered and it's causing more problems. And like, I just stopped at a spot where like that problem has now like found itself out through some issues with Heathcliff. And so I'm like, dude, like, it's very much telling a story of like just repeating your mistakes, just repeating your same errors of your same ways, your same mistakes, your same faults, and just continuing to keep living that same life over and over. And I don't like, I guess it's kind of supposed to be a play on like generational trauma and how that can affect each generation. However, this has a very direct role of generational trauma in the sense that we're trying to instill generational trauma onto these people on purpose. We're not trying to keep them away from it. We want them to suffer as we have suffered. And that's a wild take. that's just me being me. That's a wild ass take. Also, seeing that there were so many like law things that were not able to be like negated or like pushed through to allow certain people to have better treatment is crazy. There's just a lot of crazy things that happen. All that to say, I'm enjoying the book. We are still getting a little bit of it told from Nellie in the second act, but it's more of like Mr. Lockwood is retelling us what Nellie told him at this point in Act 2. Act 1 was Nellie actively sitting and telling us the story, and now this part is Mr. Lockwood telling us what Nellie told him. And I will say the whole book is proving to be just Nellie's account of the world. And I hate some of that because I feel like I'm missing pieces. I'm specifically talking about Miss Linton, later Miss someone else that I'm trying not to spoil that. But her story of like what happens to her after no longer being Miss Linton is very like jarring, but like we don't get to actually see it and we barely get to hear it. And so we're having to kind of like decipher through her words like what we may think that she's going through. And I think that's where a lot of the movie gets the liberties that it has to like play Miss Linton, Isabella, as this like BDSM character, if you will, in the movie. And in the book, we don't actually see that play out. We have to use our imagination. And we have to just imagine what we think might have happened to her and how she might have been treated for her to be responding in the ways that she is. So, I don't know, there's a lot to talk about with this book. I'm really enjoying it. It is heavy and it is dense. And so I am getting quite tired of reading it in that aspect, but because I'm doing it for a vlog, I'm like, I need to finish it. And I don't like that. And I'm going to find a way to mitigate this in the future because I feel like this is a book that you need a break. And I unfortunately just don't have time to have a break. What I should have probably done with this video is started this, moved on to Done and Dusted, a silly, goofy read, and then came back to this so that I wasn't having to read all of this in one sitting. But regardless, it is good. I do enjoy it. I do recommend it if you've never read it. And I don't think it's that hard to like get into the understanding of like how they're talking and what they're saying and what they mean. Obviously, this is written in the 1840s, right? So it is written in a different time period. So we have the historical differences there, but we also have the like language difference in a way where the way that they spoke was a little bit more foofy, if you will, a little more posh. So trying to decipher it can be a little bit difficult, but I think for the most part, this is a pretty easily accessible book in my opinion. And again, that's also coming from a perspective of someone who has like higher education. So I could be wrong, but I do think that if you haven't read it, I do recommend trying it. If you have an Audible, the audiobook is free on Audible, so maybe there's a way to check that out. And then I think that the actual book is free on some platforms too because it's a classic. So like potentially check Barnes & Noble's ebooks and Kindle's ebooks. I think that there's a way probably for you to get this for free. If you have Fable, I believe you could potentially even get the full thing on Fable in the ebook version. So you can get this for free. You don't have to buy the book, which I think is great for the accessibility of this. Anyway, I have to go now. I need to work. Hopefully I can get it finished this afternoon though. Like I said, I only have like 100 and something pages. I think I have 150 pages left. We can do this. I'm excited. We're gonna finish it. And I'm excited for y'all to watch this video. If you are enjoying the video, please don't forget to like and subscribe. Leave a comment if you've read this book or any other books, or if there's any other classics that you think I should read. I would love to hear from you on that too. But yeah, I'm gonna stop rambling now, get back into it. I'll see y'all soon. All right, we did it. We finished Wuthering Heights, y'all. It took us a while, you know. This is a dense one. It took me a minute, but we did it, and I'm so happy that we finished it. This is a very good book. I really did enjoy it. Some thoughts that I had are there are two characters in this book that we meet later in like part 2, basically. And it's pretty much part 2 is about the two characters. And those two characters are basically set upon each other to be like enemies and purposefully set to be enemies. And then something ends up happening and they end up growing into a friendship later on in life. And I was very grateful to see that because it is, again, speaking to that generational trauma thing that I talked about in my earlier clip, where basically Heathcliff is trying to put generational trauma on other people. The things that he dealt with and the things that he went through as a youth and growing up and how he was shunned and seen as lesser than and all of that, he's trying to do to other people and trying to make them lesser than and trying to make them believe that they are not as worthy of whatever. And so then pitting people against each other and just kind of making this terrible like environment for these people, for them to finally realize like, you know what, I don't have to be this way and I don't have to be this type of person. And I'm grateful to have seen how the book ended, where they do overcome those things and come back to themselves and realize like, this isn't who I am. I'm acting out of myself because this person has put so much bitterness and scorn and hate into my heart for the things that he has done to us. I'm acting out the way that he would want me to. And I will say too, like, Nellie's character in this book pissed me off. I don't know if the intention was for her to be a divisive character, but she pissed me off. That's what I do know. What do you mean that you're not telling people when people are doing things that are, you know, are going to be a detriment to them? You know, it's going to be something bad is going to happen to them. Something awful is going on. Like terrible things are happening. And you just elect to just be like, it's fine. They'll figure it out. Like, what do you mean by that? What do you mean that you don't blame yourself for some of the like goings-ons that you don't stop from happening, basically? I don't know. There are many, many times in this book that Nellie could have stopped certain things or could have potentially helped and like gotten help and gone for other people to help. And she waits until the last possible second to ask for help where help can't be provided anymore. And so I feel like all of the things that happen in this book are not Nellie's fault. Let's be clear about that. But I do feel like there are things that happen in this book that Nellie could have helped keep from happening and going so terribly. And so because of that, I'm like, girl, I can't stand you. I don't know. Maybe that's an unpopular opinion, and I don't know because I've not seen any other reviews on Wuthering Heights like this, so I'm not really sure what everyone else feels about it, but my personal opinion is just like, I don't know. And she does talk about in the book too, like Nellie does like comment that she is kind of more of a stander by kind of person and not really like an interject myself into things, but then she has the audacity to like scold other people for not intervening, and I'm just kind of like, what are we doing? Like, I don't understand. And maybe that was like an of the time kind of thing. I'm not really sure. I don't like her. Like, she has amiable qualities, don't get me wrong, but like because of the way that this book goes and the things that Nellie could have potentially stopped way early on by just speaking up and not speaking up, like it really just irritates me. And like her reasons for not speaking up a lot of the time were just like things where like, well, someone's not feeling well, so I don't want to cause them more grief. And it's like, okay, but that person is responsible for this person, and thus you should let them know that this thing is going on. And because she doesn't let anybody know, a bad thing happens to somebody and they get pulled into this situation. And like this happens like 2-3 times in this book with Nellie. And I'm like, girl, when do you learn your lesson? Everybody else is learning a lesson in this book. When do you learn yours? I don't know. What else? There's another character that's a younger character in Act 2 that we meet, Little Linton, I guess is what we can call him. And he's terrible also. But then I'm like, also like poor kid, because he's very ill and just like seems very like a feeble person. I guess in nowadays terms, he would just be someone with a disability. It sounds like he had like some kind of condition for like weaker bones and weaker muscles. So anytime he like fell or like anything, it like severely hurt him and it made him like very ill. So I'm assuming that nowadays standards, he would just be a disabled person in the sense that like he had like a debilitating disability that he needed assistance with. He needed people to help him, but because of the like misogyny of how people work in this book, it was put on him to like be manly and just push through things and stop being such a whiny baby and just stand up and walk around and do stuff. And it's like he literally can't. Like he literally just can't. And that's not his fault. It's how his body is made. All that to say, that character though is terrible, but also I can see like the duality. Like there's a lot of like, oh, I feel for this character, but there's also the like, but you gotta help yourself at some point. You don't have to be this person, and you keep choosing to be this person. And I understand that the negative and ugly things that have happened to you in life are pushing you to be this ugly person, but like you are also choosing to follow that path and be that person when you don't have to be. And it's kind of, it just is very frustrating, unfortunately. It's one of those things that from a psychological perspective, I think about like how far does nature and nurture go, right? Like how far until like there was just nothing you could have done, that person was going to be that person. But I don't really inherently believe that. I do believe to an extent there are things that we have free will. We do have self-control, and we can control our own actions. And that doesn't include like mental illness and thinking about those things, but like it does include to like how you want to present yourself to other people and how you want to be to other people. And I'm not saying that if someone's being hateful to you that you now need to be nice to them because they're being hateful to you. I don't agree with that. But I do think you're allowing them to have way bigger impact on you because you're taking on the things that they say about you, and you're like, yeah, well, like basically making those statements true if they don't have to be. And I think that's just like the overarching like theme of Heathcliff in this book, is that Heathcliff basically gets shat on the whole beginning half of this book. Everybody's telling him about how brown he is and poor and shit and awful and dumb and stupid and all of these things. And he internalizes that. And like to a point, like, yeah, you keep hearing those things. Eventually you're going to start believing them if you keep hearing them over and over and people keep beating you down. But at the same time, at a certain point, you do have the ability to like decide that you're not going to be the thing that they say you are. And like Heathcliff, like, semi-spoiler, like leaves the situation and he's gone for a while. And in that time he comes back and he still like has this same negative person about him. And it's just kind of like, why? Like, why? Why did you leave and then come back and decide that I'm still going to be this awful, hateful, ugly person that they believe that I am? When you didn't have to be. Like, you got separation from the situation. You could have gone and made yourself better. You could have gone and bettered yourself and learned that, like, yeah, these things that these people said about me are not true. I am a good person and I am all these things. But instead you left, came back, and you were just like, yeah, no, I've just sat in it and decided that that's fully my personality. And it's just kind of strange to me. I don't know. I really enjoyed this. Rating-wise, I don't know. I think I need to sit with it. I'm not really sure. It's very good. I did enjoy it, other than Joseph. Y'all, I couldn't understand that man to save my life. In any of the parts where he talked, I was barely grasping at straws trying to understand what this man was saying. Even with the audiobook, it's just too hard. There were some parts that I was kind of like, oh, that's very sweet. But then it would be very, very quickly overshadowed by just like awful, terrible behaviors. I think almost every character in this book is problematic and terrible. I think almost every character. I think the only character that I would say is not a problematic person would probably be the eldest Mr. Linton. I think he's the only one that I would have been like, yeah, I think he was pretty fair. Like, he was a good person through and through the whole book. So I think he's probably the only one that I'm like, yeah, no, he was chill. He was pretty cool. He was a good person. Everybody else was terrible people in this book. Terrible, terrible people. And again, I iterate, I think that most of them are terrible because someone beset them to be terrible. Look at me talking like I'm from the 1840s. Ridiculous. Someone pushed them to be terrible and they just sat in it and said, yeah, sure, that's what I'll do. And they didn't have to. And this could have been a different ending. This could have been a different book. Obviously, this is what Emily wanted to get out of this book. And this is what she wanted to write. And this is what she wanted it to become. But I just, whew. This is a dense one. This is heavy. So if you do read Wuthering Heights, I will recommend that you don't read it all at once like I did. Do not sit down for 3 days straight reading this book. It's a lot. It is very dense and it's very heavy. I definitely recommend spreading this out a little bit, adding some happier tones to your life, and not just reading this. And then I also recommend don't go into reading even more sad books after you read this one. hey, just a note. You'll see what my next video is about. Anyway, thank you guys for coming along. Thank you for joining me while I read Wuthering Heights and we read Done and Dusted. I really enjoyed both of those books. I had a good time. I think my heart is leaning towards a 4.5 for Wuthering Heights. Honestly, I just don't feel 5-star-ish about it. And it's just because I don't think I would ever read it again. It is a classic and I did enjoy it, which is why I think 4.5. My heart's just saying 4.5, so that's what we're gonna go with. So, thank you guys for joining me. I hope you enjoyed this romance reading vlog. There is romance that happens in that book, by the way. It's just not a romance. It is more about generational trauma, in my opinion. But I hope y'all enjoyed this video. Sorry that we didn't get to do more fun and cutesy books in this vlog, but maybe I'll have a future romance vlog, maybe if you're lucky, and we can read some more. Until then, please don't forget to like and subscribe, and then leave me a comment. Let me know, have you read Wuthering Heights? Have you seen the movie Wuthering Heights? I don't think I'm gonna go see that, but have you seen it? Have you read Done and Dusted or any other like cowboy romances that you recommend? Are there any other classics that you recommend that I read? I'd love to hear from you. Please chime in down in the comments, and I will talk to y'all and see y'all in the next video. Bye.